Уважаемые коллеги, уважаемые друзья, здравствуйте.
Dear colleagues, dear friends, hello. Today is July the 2nd. We are beginning of our online conference within the International Online Business Mission to Asia and South America for the heavy engineering industry. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Andrei Zhukovsky. I'm the head of the digital platform for International Conference B2B Russia.ru, responsible for fairs and exhibitions, and I'm the moderator of this conference today. Please allow me to say a few words about a couple of technical issues. Our conference will last 2.5 hours. We have a very busy agenda. We have 14 very interesting speakers. I will ask them to stick to the time limits, and I will be reminding you of your time limits to ensure that we do not go beyond our schedule and not lose some of our listeners. Try to stick to 7 or 8 minutes to leave a couple of minutes for questions and answers. Secondly, our conference's agenda is on the website where all of the listeners had to sign up, and you can follow the order of the presentations and timing. We have 2 YouTube channels in Russian and in English. Simultaneous interpretation is available. And so, dear participants, you can ask questions to our speakers in the YouTube channels, and I'm going to be monitoring the questions. I'm not going to be able to speak English to avoid any issues with the quick switching between the channels. I'll only be talking in Russian, and the speakers will be able to speak the language of their choosing. The speakers can also ask questions to other speakers and write comments using our internal chat function. That's all I had for the housekeeping issues, and I'm going back to the topic of the conference. We are beginning heavy engineering, heavy machinery industry is a very serious, science-intensive industry producing means of production, which is very important for any economy of the world. And of course, it is important for the economy of Russia. Our business mission gathered here some of the best exporters of Russia. And the organizer of this business mission is the Russian Export Center, traditionally, which has been doing a lot to make sure that Russian products and services are well recognized and sold around the world. Please allow me to start this online conference with a brief words of welcome by Maxim Kobin, Vice President of Russian Export Center. Because he is flying right now, he pre-recorded this address. We are going to display his video right now. I'm happy to welcome the participants of this business mission on heavy engineering, all of the participants of the conference. I'm confident that Russian producers have a lot of potential for entering foreign markets. And some of the heavy engineering producers have been quite successful in exporting their products to neighboring countries and to other countries of the world. This is something that we'll be hearing from exporters themselves. We understand that the markets are quite competitive, and our goal is to make sure that we find the right niche for Russian producers of heavy engineering equipment. There are key regions that are traditionally open to Russian exporters. That includes CIS countries, South America, Asia, and Africa. And there's quite a lot of demand for heavy engineering products, and we have been working on that quite extensively. Russian Export Center is ready to provide the full set of measures of financial and non-financial support for exporters of heavy engineering equipment to enter foreign markets in 2020. The amount of export that we supported in heavy engineering industry was $81 million worth. 143 exporters got support. I would like to wish you the best of success in your conference, and I wish that to exporters and all of the participants. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Maxim, and thank you to Maxim for his words of welcome and introduction. Dear colleagues, all strong countries of the world support their supporters, their exporters and their producers. And of course, Russia is one of those countries. As Mr. Kobin has said, a lot has been done by Russian organizations, including the Russian Export Center. But now I'd like to give the floor to a representative of our key ministry that is responsible for this function in Russia. Government measures to support the industry. And I would like to invite to the microphone Ivan Troshenkov, head of Metallurgical and Material Handling Equipment Development Department from the Ministry of Industry and Trade of the Russian Federation. Mr. Troshenkov, you have the floor. Good morning, dear colleagues. Thank you for setting up this online conference, supporting our exporters. In the current situation when transfer of technologies is kind of limited and it's not easy to communicate with some countries because of the pandemic. Nevertheless, we need to continue the dialogue and would like to speak about some of the things that are important to us. And we'll talk about this in our presentation. The development of the export potential of our producers is quite important for the development of the industry and is a priority of our work at the Ministry of Industry and Trade. So last year, the volume of production was 209.8 billion rubles worth, which is higher than in 2019, which was just under it. And we've seen a growth of over 10%. The amount of export grew by 9.9% year on year compared to 2019. And it was 18.9 million rubles. We have a comprehensive system of measures of state support for exporters. We have a mechanism of beneficial lending according to Decree 191, trying to increase the competitiveness of our products. We've also signed an agreement with Uralmashzavod for beneficial funding for several 100 million rubles. And our exporters have received already support that is worth over 800 million rubles. And this includes co-funding that has been provided by the state to implement a number of measures. Import substitution, something that we've been working on over 5 years, included support worth more than 5 billion rubles. And that includes new combine machines, excavators, mining machines, drilling machines, rolling equipment, and hoists and lifts. Russian producers expand their area of competence that allows them to enter a new market. And in the mining equipment, the exports primarily consist of our dragline, and Uztem Cartex won a tender of supplying 16 such draglines worth more than several $100 million. And that is quite important considering what is going on around the world. And this is one of the largest orders that allowed us to replicate our experience and our products to Asian markets. We also helped modernize Antillana de Acera in Cuba using Russian-made metallurgical equipment. This project is something that the general director of the company will be talking about later on. But for us, it is quite important because this is the first project of this kind. And the Russian companies were acting as an EPC provider, and 90% of this project was implemented using Russian products. I would also like to point out a major project that we have been implementing in the Republic of Nigeria. As part of our existing agreements, we need to restore a Najakurta metallurgical combine according to a contract that has been signed. We are going to be acting as EPC providers, and equipment will also be supplied from Russia. Some of the lifting equipment is also important. We have tower cranes from Kranovi Technology is being supplied, and we have been supplying gantry cranes to Germany. Scherbinga crane factory has supplied 52 lifts to Cuba. And I would also like to say that these are important contracts, and that allows us to set our footprints there. I'd like to say that we need to continue developing our competitive industry, and we need to stimulate export potential of the machine builders. On our part, we would like to look forward to joint work with the community. We hope that the companies that will be presenting today will be helping strengthening the partnership with all of the partners. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Mr. Troshenkov. Could you please tell me, you see a lot of cases in front of you, successful and not so successful cases of Russian exporters work on foreign markets. What would be the key piece of advice that you would give to Russian exporters in the heavy engineering industry if they want to enter foreign markets? The main piece of advice would be to learn about the tools that are available through REC and through the Ministry of Industry and Trade of Russia, because becoming an exporter is not an easy path. Sometimes it's a long journey, and we have tried to create the conditions that would allow the exporters to retain their interest and reduce the time and the cost of implementing major contracts, because heavy engineering products by nature may have difficulties competing, but when we talk about investment projects, that's when we have potential. That's where we have our references, and that's where you need government support. And the more you get involved in the work that we do and take advantage of what we have done, then the easier it will be for them to implement those approaches. Thank you very much, Mr. Troshenkov. Those were important words, and I hope that all of the listeners of our conference heard that. The topic of support measures provided by our country for exporters is a topic that we will be talking more about during today's conference, but thank you again for your intervention, and we move on. I would like to urge, and there's a question from Vitaly Galkin. Mr. Troshenkov, where can one get advice on support measures in Sverdlovsk region? In every region, there are offices of the Ministry of Industry and Trade, and you can also act through Russian Export Center or REC. But if that doesn't work, you can always contact me directly, and I would always be able to provide any advice or consultation if you have a need for that. I hope that the Russian Expert Center will definitely respond. They're ready to help. There is the Russian Expert Center. There are regional expert centers. I'm sure they have one in Sverdlovsk Oblast, and you also have offices of the Ministry of Industry and Trade, and Mr. Troshenkov is also available. Moreover, Inno-Prom is a major event that we are now scheduling to have. We're going to spend a lot of effort promoting our support measures at that event. We're going to be there in full strength. I'm going to be there as well. And so if you have any questions, please let us know. If you have any questions that you need us to help you with, just let us know. Thank you very much, Mr. Troshenkov. Have a great day. We go on with our conference. Mr. Troshenkov mentioned Innopromm, and I would like to expound on that. Dear colleagues, I would like to inform you that as the result of the exhibition activities in Russia, contracts are signed for over 3 trillion rubles in volume. That's about 3% of the entire GDP of our country. And now I would like to give the microphone to my colleague, the first deputy general director of Expo Center, Sergei Selivanov. Expo Center is involved in conducting exhibitions for over 60 years. That includes flagship exhibitions and fairs. Participation in such fairs and exhibitions is a very effective tool for sales if applied appropriately. And I'm sure Sergei will speak more about this. Sergei, you have the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Zhukovsky. You've said the key things, and I just have to say hello to my colleagues. I'm not going to take too much of your time, but I will concentrate on the key things. I'd like to thank the Russian Expert Center for the invitation to take part in this event, in this business mission. And on behalf of Expo Center and its general director, I would like to welcome all of you. Yes, indeed, Expo Center is one of the key organizers of exhibitions and fairs in Russia. Indeed, we are over 60 years old, and over these 60 years, we have conducted over 6,000 congress and exhibition events. Most of them are well known to you. You take part in them, and that includes such flagships as Neftegas, Protex, metal processing, and others. Speaking about the future of the industry, I'm sure the professionals will speak more about this, but I would like to inform you that thanks to our own exhibitions, we have been showing the best achievements in the machine building industry. And Mr. Zhukovsky has already alluded to this. These exhibitions are key effective tools and universal tools and mechanisms for promoting goods and services both on the domestic and foreign markets. And the economies need to restore after the pandemic, and that helps with the restoration. And of course, the pandemic has impacted our activities. We do notice the absence of foreign visitors and exhibitors from abroad. Because of the epidemic situation, we are facing new restrictions, of course. But this means that that would mean that you would need to have QR codes to enter an exhibition if you have been vaccinated or you have a negative PCR test. But fortunately, we just recently had a traditional event back in May with the support of the Ministry of Industry and Trade, which I'm very thankful to them for, and to you, Mr. Troshenkov, personally. So we held this, one of the largest metal processing exhibitions. It was attended by Mikhail Mishustin, the Prime Minister of Russia. And let me just give you some numbers. The exhibition was on the square area of more than 32,000 square meters. And there was 790 participants. And despite the closure of borders, we've had, nevertheless, exhibitors from over 30 countries, including some of you, dear colleagues, and we had more than 32,000 visitors. Speaking about the effectiveness of the exhibitions for your export promotion, more than 40% of visitors are professional buyers, according to our survey, and they plan to buy, after visiting the exhibition, the equipment that was exhibited there. 38% were there for the first time at the metal processing exhibition. That means that we are inviting new audience, and 19% percent of our visitors only go to metal processing exhibition, which means that they are very sought after.
Не могу не отметить деловую программу, которая...
One can't but mention the business program that is traditionally part of these events. Together with the Ministry of Industry and Trade, we hold a specialist roundtable discussing topical issues on the state of the industry, prospects of development, and measures underway to support. With regard to the effectiveness and efficiency, based on this exposition, Skolkovo residents got 300 million rubles worth of contracts. Just one example, 2022, in late May, the exhibition will again be held. I invite everybody. Besides metalworking, in this segment, there's another large project, Russia Industrial Week. This week, apart from we hold a Techno Forum, Roosevelt, and there is a week exhibition on non-destructive control, the inspection, and the advertising. The Russian Industrial Week will be held 18 to 21st of October. Dear colleagues, let me conclude my welcoming statement. And once again, thank you very much for the invitation. If you have questions, let me respond. Thank you very much again. Sergey, thank you very much. I can only confirm what you have said. As Vice President of the Russian Union of Fairs and Exhibitions, I understand the workings and the effectiveness of fairs and exhibitions. The way I know this subject, one of the issues related to exhibitions is not all exhibitors, unfortunately, work in a professional way at exhibitions. If you could name one or two mistakes that exhibitors make, even with some experience in business, that reduces the effect of their involvement and participation. What should they do? What shouldn't they do if you are participate in a large international exhibition? Andrei, thank you for the question. That's the right question. Two things. One, exhibitors with a lot of experience of participation will not make mistakes. They understand that preparation for exhibitions is not only for the organizers. We are preparing the exhibitions jointly, involving and attracting the target audience for these exhibitors to become their counterparties. This work should be done jointly with the exhibitors, sending invitations for participations to partners. Of course, this should involve the exhibitors themselves. And specifically, this is a joint task, and we are providing support. We can provide additional materials and databases, and involving and attracting target audience is joint effort. And secondly, for effective exhibitions, the personnel for the exhibition should be trained properly. And we invite, in terms of outsourcing, experts to train the exhibition personnel for the stands to use the time in a professional way. And after the exhibition, given the context made, to work and process the material received to produce a desired effect. Thank you very much again, Sergey. I can only corroborate what you have just said. Every exhibition stand is an office outside of your residential your actual office. Thank you very much. Sergey, for reminding us of the importance of fairs and exhibitions, and I'm sure that the Expo Center will get new exhibitors. Exhibitors will gain new contracts, and Russia's economy will get more money, jobs, and all kinds of economic and social implications. Thank you very much. We are moving on. Dear colleagues, I've been involved in exports for quite a few years, and I'm always surprised that not all exhibitors know about the kind of support they can get from the Russian Export Center. Ivan has introduced this subject. The Russian Export Center, we are once again coming to Russian Export Center presentation. They have a wonderful website. There's a one-stopping principle, and still there's insufficient information. Not all exporters are aware of the support measures they can enjoy, and that's quite important. And I really in support of what Ivan has said. Now with after Export Center, I give the floor to Ivan Shetitin, Director for Support of Oil and Gas and Heavy Engineering of the Russian Export Center. Anton Shetitin. After Export Center to Export Center. You have the floor. Thank you very much. I'm happy to welcome all the attendees of the conference and thank you for the introduction. I want to thank all the colleagues, the previous speaker. We're in close contact with the previous speaker, and all the topics on heavy engineering are jointly discussed. And the more successful negotiations and business missions occur, the better for us. Our KPI is supported contracts. And we are actually an institution that have a mandate for high-tech and other industry support. Once again, I wish all the participants of the business mission success. Toward the end of this slide, I will present my contact details. And those who have not met me, I call on everybody to come in contact. A few words about the popular measures rendered by the Russian Export Center. Now I will switch my presentation and show the screen.
Алло, коллеги, меня слышно?
Can you hear me? Yes, you can see the presentation. Thank you. Briefly about the structure of the Russian Export Center. The head company is the Russian Export Center, the Center for Non-Financial Support, Administration of Russian Export Support, two financial institutions, Rosexim Bank, a specialized financial institute that provides lending and credit products to exporters and buyers of export products, and the export credit agency XR, providing insurance support to export products for high-tech products. For non-financial support, we provide a wide range of services to our exporters. We can help you with regard to market analysis, market research, marketing materials, analytics. We can advise you on the choice of logistic companies, on the barriers in external markets. We are providing a popular assistance in terms of promotion in overseas markets, perspective search for prospective buyers overseas. We're trying to work with countries where we have trade representations to achieve maximum efficiency in search of customers, administration of customs activity, drafting documents, and you can go to our expertcenter.ru website and go into the details and the options of the services and support. With regard to financial support, Roseximbank is part of the Rosexpert Group. It's specializing in providing funds, financing, pre-expert funds financing when the contract is in the making and the company is planning to produce. This can be a post-expert financing where we are financing based on the fact of shipping and the support for overseas customers. It can be international factoring. It's a very popular product. It's not simple to administer, but quite interesting for all the parties of the export deal. And I will dwell on that later. We are also providing guarantees, all kinds of guarantees and bonds at the stage of the making of contract, implementation of the contract. With regard to lending to buyers, we are providing direct lending, interbank lending, trade finance, confirmed letter of credit, and I will dwell on that later on in my presentation. With regard to Exar Credit Agency, Exar Insurance Agency, it covers entrepreneurial and political risks, and our obligations are covered by a government guarantee of the Russian Federation to the tune of $20 billion, 95% political risk, 90% for business risks. With regard to political risks, that's a long list of political risks, the potential events that are covered, change of legislation, force majeures, the state debtor refusal to perform on obligations, which is important when companies enter overseas markets. Look at these products of Exar and use them for negotiations on new export projects. A few words about the scale of the Russian Export Center Group. 114 countries projects were supported. For Exar project products, we supported to the tune of $17.2 billion exports. And for Roseximbank, it's about $2 billion of exports supported across the board. Of course, there's diversification by regions, but it's, of course, Asia, Africa, Western Europe are key. With regard to support for large-scale projects, we understand for heavy engineering. It's heavy engineering is dealing with the challenging customers. It's not just small batches. These are large-scale investment projects. And of importance is the experience of Exar Roseximbank in international projects when we work together with world financial institutions and institutes, world export agencies. Quite often, the number of parties is a dozen companies, can be European, Asian companies. We understand that for such projects, for the right structuring of the projects and deals, for the right positioning of a Russian exporter, we should be involved at an early stage of the project. And I call on our exporters, if you get information about new projects in regions, please inform us, involve us, and we are ready to issue comfort letters, to be involved in negotiations process, to enhance your proposition, including the use of reduced interest rate financing. Of course, government support is important for regions implementing projects like building metallurgical works, mining projects. Quite often, regional governments issue guarantees for structuring finance as to successful. The project is Tashkent Metallurgical Works, which was funded by Roseximbank and SAR, $163 million. I did not include it in this information into this. I'll mention projects where we are involved too, and we are interested in implementation of the projects we are in within the pipeline currently. And we are working fruitfully with Russian exporters on those. With regard to financial products of Roseximbank and Exar, as I have said, we're working both with exporters and their customers, buyers. The advantages of our products are obvious for all the parties. In case of lending to exporters, the exporter can finance the export contract on favorable conditions that we can render on the part of Roseximbank. Accordingly, having XR insurance policy in financing adds some flexibility to the funding bank in terms of conditions, in terms they provide the longer tenor, more better schedules for repayment, and creating reserves for such loans, and it affects actually the eventual interest rate for lending our exporters. For buyers, buyers receive competitive financing rates from Roseximbank and from other banks with coverage from Exar, and good conditions for repayment, for rates, and the exporters get a guaranteed financing for their delivery of their products. We are also working with banks in the regions where we deliver our exporters, but we have partner banks in all the major countries where products are exported from Russia. If a company starts negotiations with an overseas customer, we are looking at the banks that are there, ready to approve new limits if necessary, and to refinance export contracts through interbank financing, which is quite often faster than direct lending to buyers. And this is something should be done on your potential projects. Using letters of credits has long been used. We are ready to confirm letters of credit of regional overseas markets. We are ready to provide discounts for these letters of credit. And for exporters, they are guaranteed revenue after the delivery of the product. And these are services are provided on special terms, and that's useful and important for exporters. The currently effective
за рубежом по таким
So we
проектам
can create this infrastructure in Russia and abroad. And on behalf of the Russian Export Center, we're ready to support you with XR. And if you realize that you would require to create a certain infrastructure, you could use these tools, the tools of XR and Roseximbank to finance your projects. As far as export factoring is concerned, this is definitely an interesting product for buyers because we know that you can have a debt that you can get on beneficial conditions. You can ship your products on time, and it's not easy to put together, but it is something that we've got a lot of experience with, and we have learned to process it quite quickly. And if you have a need for factoring services, please let us know, and we'll be developing similar products for your debtors. As for guarantees, on behalf of Roseximbank, we will be able to provide the guarantees on all phases, during all phases of your contract, when you're getting the advance payment, or when you need to guarantee performance of the contract. All of these types of guarantees, performance bonds, are offered. And I would also like to suggest another service you could take advantage of, getting an authorization to process inside the customs territory. Those who use imported products in the production of their products, we help exporters waive the import duties on such imported components, and we would be able to support you throughout all of the phases of your imports. Please let us know. Go to the Russian Export Center, and we'll be working with you to optimize your costs. Just a couple of words about the subsidies that are quite popular. There is a decree 496 on transportation of industrial products. We will have another window until the 1st of August. We will be able to subsidize up to 80% of your actual costs, and that will be done within certain limits for different types of transportation. For heavy engineering products, these limits are the limits that we would certainly want to increase them and expand them, because you incur a lot of expenses transporting heavy machinery, and we would be willing to work with the ministries and the government to expand them. But in the current version of the document, you can make an application before August and get your costs reimbursed. As for subsidies for the protection of your intellectual property, we can compensate your reimburse your costs in that regard, including the duties and fees you have to pay. There is a separate decree on subsidies for patents, and at our website you will be able to find more detailed descriptions of requirements for exporters and make your application there. As for certification expenses, when you need to export your products, we can subsidize up to 80% of your incurred cost. And the Ministry of Industry and Trade and the Russian Export Center can be involved in getting your subsidies. Plus, you can also get subsidies for your participation in fairs and exhibitions. We have been doing this for quite some time. Of course, the number of offline events has been limited due to the pandemic, but in any case, we have been holding online business missions, and we hope that they're going to be effective for you. And we're going to be doing this for many different industries and sectors throughout the year, and all of our events are on our website, and you can sign up and make an application to participate in one. And this is the page with my contact details. Please let me know of all of the problems that you may encounter. And there is the regional network of offices of REC, or you can go to my colleagues directly at those offices, or come to us with your specific cases. And all of the measures that I've just outlined are quite popular. They work. And those who haven't yet tested or used them, please take advantage of them. And you will, I'm sure, will be happy with what we can offer today. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Shitinin. I think it was quite useful to all of us to once again hear about and learn about the support measures that the Russian Expert Center has been providing. I can tell that they are constantly updated and they change all the time for the better. And that's a very important aspect. I always emphasize this. A question has come for you. Does the Russian Expert Center offer the service of checking the potential foreign counterparties? We can do due diligence for your counterparties. So we have a network of offices, Russian expert centers abroad, and we can use them to check your counterparties. Send your request to us. We will take a look at your potential counterparties, and we'd be able to share whatever information we can with you on that particular part. A single window service. Does it already work? That is another question that we've got. How comprehensive is this service? Can we supply applications digitally? Of course, it does work. And if you haven't yet registered or signed up, please do. There are a number of support measures through Russian Expert Center have already been implemented using this single window service. What we used to do on paper, we can now do electronically thanks to this service. So it is operational, and the list of financial support measures is going to be included in the list of opportunities offered by the single window service. And that is something that we find to be quite important and key to us. We are going to be developing it further. Thank you very much, Mr. Shitinin, for your intervention. I would like to thank you one more time on behalf of all of the participants of our conference for this very substantive and detailed presentation. Thank you. And dear colleagues, I can say that the Russian Expert Center is open to you. They do have this single window service. It is open, it is working. Excuse me. And as Mr. Shitinin has indicated, these support measures that are available through the single window service, their range is going to expand. And there's a great website of the Russian Expert Center you can always go to, and they are open for you, the Russian Expert Center, that is. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Zhukovsky, and we're now on schedule. And one of the largest markets that is the focus of this business mission is Indonesia. It's a huge country with a population of more than twice the size of Russia's. The square area is more than 2 million square kilometers, to 175 million people living in the country, and 63 million businesses. Clearly, there are a lot of micro enterprises that make up that number, but the structure of the economy is very interesting and unique. We will talk about the future of exports of Russian exports of heavy engineering products to Indonesia. And Pavel Sorokin, Deputy Trade Representative of Russia in Indonesia, will be talking about this. Pavel, you have the floor. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm happy to welcome you at this video conference, and I would like to thank the organizers for providing us with this unique opportunity to share our viewpoints on prospects of bilateral cooperation between our two countries in such an interesting and important area as heavy engineering. A couple of words about Indonesia, the Republic of Indonesia, and what makes it unique and what drives its development. Indonesia is an archipelago that contains more than 6,000 inhabited islands. There are more uninhabited islands. It's a huge area of more than 5 million kilometers, and the population is indeed in excess of 270 million people. A lot of people living in those islands. More importantly, the country is located in a seismically active zone where we have a lot of ores and the mineral resources that are basically on the surface of the earth. And this combination makes Indonesia as one of the countries that is very much seeking products for energy, power engineering, mining, and the metallurgy. And according to the Association of the Producers of Heavy Engineering, the imports of these products account for 45% of the market, and 55% are covered by local products, domestically made products. According to the forecasts of this association, despite the difficult situation caused by the coronavirus pandemic, they are expecting the growth in the heavy engineering industry by 6% next year, thanks to the growth of prices in mineral resources. According to the analysts' forecast, the volume of sales will grow because of the restored demand in the mining industry, agriculture, and in construction. In the mining sector, the growth of demand will be driven primarily by the mining of coal, various ores such as tin, nickel, gold, and since mineral resources mining is done in open pit mostly in Indonesia, and therefore one of the most sought after type of equipment will be drag lines, open pit dump trucks, and other types of equipment. I would also like to separate the power industry. Back in 2015, the government of Indonesia adopted a long-term program for power development, power industry development until 2029, where they would be introducing additional installed generating capacity. They will still be counting on coal, 42 gigawatts of capacity, hydroelectric power stations of 9 gigawatt, and geothermal stations, about 4.8 gigawatts in power capacity. Another separate point in this program are small hydropower plants. And our trade mission has been participating in video conferences with interested parties on this topic, both in Indonesian and Russian, developing coordinated positions and creating the platform for launching joint projects. Not everything is done from the first take, but we are nevertheless undeterred, and we keep plowing forward. Some of the Indonesian experts that have visited Russian plants, Russian products in the power engineering industry does meet the requirements on, as a whole, the requirements of Indonesian industries. That applies to specific products and services such as construction of power plants. Gas turbine power equipment is singled out by the experts in terms of its quality, which exceeds the quality of Chinese products and is on par with the products of General Electric and Siemens and the likes, and is capable of competing cost-wise, which is one of our advantages. Speaking about metallurgy, I'd like to say that the national company Krakatau Steel announced its plans to modernize its old and plans to construct its new metallurgical facilities. They are now discussing these issues very actively, and we try to participate in those discussions as much as we can. Based on the experience that we've accumulated, I would like to emphasize in a couple of moments, a couple of things that are quite important conditions for Russian exporters' success in promoting their products on the Indonesian market. First of all, it is desirable to find a local partner, an agent or a distributor, in order to sell the products and spare parts, and working together with such partners to provide maintenance services. The availability of such a reliable local distributor is quite important when you search for buyers among state organizations within various industries. Secondly, one of the constraints that hold back the development of Russian exports in heavy engineering sector is the lack of mechanism of financial support for Russian exports, such as loans. Standard lending conditions by Russian banks make such export contracts not really profitable at the computational stage. And this is key because export facilities available in China and in Korea, they are far better than those offered by Russia. And the market of heavy engineering products is quite competitive. Regional proximity of China, Japan, and Korea make them stronger on the local market. But at the same time, if you take into consideration pricing, reliability of equipment, quality, advertising, post-sale maintenance, you could still be quite successful on the Indonesian market. And it is important to participate in industry-specific exhibitions and fair events, both in Indonesia, and you could also invite Indonesian partners to similar fairs held in our country. And to confirm the above, I would like to inform you that in November 25, 27, 2021, Jakarta will hold a major Innoprom Industrial Week. Innoprom 2021. And there will be an expanded business forum as part of that. That will happen if, of course, the epidemiological situation allows us to do that. And we hope that the Ministry for Industry and Trade, and Mr. Mandrev personally, will be attending. I would like to say that the Trade Mission has been working on a constant basis to maintain context between the producers of Russian heavy engineering products and the local buyers. And I think the prospects are quite good, especially for power engineering equipment, despite the existing discriminatory requirements of BNL, who only allow OECD countries to participate in their bids and tenders. We are working on that, and we hope that we're going to be quite successful as a result of our recent negotiations with the Ministry for Energy and Mineral Resources of Indonesia and Russian producers of hydro turbines of medium and large capacity would have pretty good prospects for being supplied to the Indonesian market as part of Rusgidro's projects in Indonesia, building hydropower plants. That's what we're working on. And that's why I would like to finish my presentation at this point. And thank you for your attention. I'm trying to stick to the time limit. Thank you very much. Pavel, would you please tell me what is the key recipe for success when you want to enter the Indonesian market? What is your vision? Okay, these are the three things that we wanted to reflect in our presentation. You need to have a local partner who would help you and advise you, and we are ready to help you with finding such partners. Secondly, as I emphasized, you need to deal with the problem of getting funding so that you could come with the good financial support and textbook policy of advice, have the right choice of products, have advertisement, and the combination of these three components will lead you to success.
Можно ли обратиться к вам с просьбой подыскать агента?
We have a question. Can we apply to you with a request to look for an agent? Yes, we get requests, we process them, we deliver on them. Our good friends will speak from Indonesia, who will also cover this matter and question on the search for partners. We use their expertise and assistance. Arthur, who asked the question, please apply to the trade representation in Indonesia. Another question. Maria is asking a question. Should a Russian company participate in government tenders? Do they have any chances for success? Can the Russian trade representation provide support in terms of government tender participations? You cannot independently participate. According to the local law, a local Indonesian company should participate. We will be happy to advise on these matters. We have people with a lot of expertise in these matters, and we can advise you on each specific case. Thank you very much. I'm sure you will get a number of requests after the end of this conference. Thank you very much. We are moving on. The next country whose market we will consider is India, a country of immense opportunities and capacity, 1.4 billion people. The prospects of Russian heavy engineering prospects to India will be covered by Alexei Leshkov, acting trade representative of the Russian Federation in the Republic of India. Alexei, you have the floor. Thank you very much, Andrew, for the opportunity to speak. Good morning, good afternoon. I would like to thank the Russian Export Center for the invitation to speak on development of Russian heavy engineering experts to India, the current opportunities and barriers. For my presentation to be as informative as it can be and to be interactive, I will show the presentation. You can see it now. Number one, a few words about the Republic of India, a large country, a country of big opportunities, long-standing links with the Russian Federation, with the Soviet Union. The heavy engineering sector is part of the Indian industry, producing fixed assets. This is a base for $13.6 billion is the total output in 18-19 financial years. The leading export centers is heavy energy and power equipment, earth digging, mining equipment, and equipment for high-tech enterprises that account for 85% of the total export of capital goods. To incentivize local production, the Center for Advanced Technology in Chennai is now involved in R&D, including intellectual platform. The huge growth of the power sector in India in the future is creating a big demand for T&D equipment. The size of the capital goods market is $43 billion and divided into several subsectors: electrical equipment, tech equipment, earth digging and mining equipment. The size of the market is shown on this slide in terms of billions of dollars. The sector has both local major government and private companies and foreign investors. The names of largest companies that can be competitors for Russian exporters are on this slide. I think they're well known, but to I have listed it for you to refresh your knowledge. Besides, the earth digging and mining equipment is in demand, machine tools and multiple operations, machine tools. And also they produce equipment for printing and food industry. Japan, Germany, Taiwan, Italy, and the United States are the major suppliers. Starting last year, some deterioration between China and India occurred. India is taking steps to get rid and remove special Chinese exporters from its marketing, including heavy engineering. So Russian exporters, therefore, have good opportunities to enter the Indian market and to substitute and replace the products of potential competitors, Chinese exporters. With regard to export of Russian equipment, there's a wide range of products, $1.8 billion. These are reactors, machines, equipments, measurement, electrical machines, aircraft. Exports is to 124, import from India to 65. In January to about $500 million trade in this quarter, about $500 million last year. Were turbines, actually, steam turbines. And they accounted for 1/2 of the export. The structure of the import and exports by specific items are on this slide. With regard to barriers and circumstances that Russian exporters can come across trying to enter the Indian market. Number one, all projects in India are carried out via international or domestic tenders. The information is on the electronic sites for government procurement or on specific sites of companies. To protect Indian enterprise from international competitors, there's a ban on international government tenders whose value does not exceed 2 billion rupees or $26 million. This limits very much foreign companies' involvement, particularly Russian companies. The company should have a reference list of its projects implemented overseas, and the customer should confirm the successful operation of the equipment. And then the requirement for this reference is now led to a new demand for technology transfer and localization of production of primary equipment in India. The starting of the program of Make in India, and starting 2020, there is another initiative, Self-Sufficient India, in addition to Make in India from 2014. We believe that having production in India enables exporters to avoid these limitations. For your information, I should say Indian companies, Larsen & Toubro, Rapuj, Damor, created a joint license production with leading foreign companies, Alstom, Siemens, ABB, Mitsubishi, Toshiba, Monsanto, and the Korean firm, Dasan, set up its own production in India. Besides, I should say that some overseas companies are using localization of production in India as a platform for moving to third countries, Africa, Indonesia, Malaysia, and other countries and regions. Besides, non-recognition of direct guarantees of Russian banks, and requirement for overseas banks guarantees is a barrier. On my part, I should say that this issue is partially resolved through finding a presence of Sberbank, VTB banks, and mechanisms provided by the Russian Export Center. Besides, the requirement to meet international Indian quality standards. I should say that we have come across this issue when equipment is delivered and cross-border take part in the government centers for the gas sector. Indian partners often require certificates, US or European certificates, and that limits, of course, the involvement of Russian exporters in tenders in the Indian market. Another aspect is a ban or limitations and constraints on working with Russian partners, banks, and companies which are under US or European sanctions. In the current situation, the main directions and areas can be the supply and delivery of mining equipment. Of course, the contract signed with ZTM Cartex with a major Indian mining company called India to supply during 5 years of equipment worth over $400 million. Deliveries of electrical power equipment, upgrading of power projects in India, which are equipped with Russian hardware. Delivery of hydromechanical, electromechanical equipment to create low water flow hydropower stations. Cooperation with Indian companies for joint participation in Indian projects, Russian projects, or third countries. For this item, I should say all foreign companies have their agents in India. Many foreign companies open their offices, and some localize their production for heavy engineering in the country. Localization of production is something they have to do. They are conducting active foreign policy. The import duty for presses in Russia does not exceed 10%. In India, the import duty is at least 30%. It makes our product less competitive, no doubt. At the same time, I should say that one of the elements and advantages that can enable Russian exporters to move their products to the Indian market and be mostly competitive is participation in import substitution program, localization of Russian manufacturing in India. And another thing, entering the Indian market, one should use the experience of other countries, like experience of working in Indonesia. The same algorithms can be applied. On my part, I should say that our trade representation in India is ready to give all kinds of support to Russian exporters and Indian importers. I hope that our cooperation will be useful, fruitful, and Russian exporters will be more in number. Thank you for your attention. I'm ready to take your questions. Thank you very much. Very interesting. We're a little bit behind the time schedule. One question from Tatiana is asking, can the trade representation in India give support in terms of return of the funds that the customer failed to pay? We have the experience of the return of such funds. We should look at the specific contract of the terms of conditions it was made on. Quite often we involve legal entities in Indian Chamber of Commerce and Trade that are assisting us in returning this unpaid money. I think it makes sense to send us specific information on this specific matter. We will look at this and try to assist to that Russian company and resolve it. Thank you very much. Tatiana, please send the description of your case to the trade representation, and hopefully this case will be resolved. Alexei, thank you very much for your very substantive, interesting presentation. We are moving on. Having visited India, now we are moving to Iran, a country under sanctions, and also shortages, of course, for some products. At the same time, we have information that sanctions can be removed or relieved. Working in a country under sanctions involves some risks. With the overview of the current situation in heavy engineering in the Republic of Iran, will be done by Andrei Bliming, a Deputy Trade Representative of Russian Federation in Islamic Republic of Iran. Please try to keep within 10-minute limit. Good morning, dear colleagues. I will try to be brief. And substantive. The situation is quite challenging. Currently, there are trade and economic sanctions vis-a-vis Iran by the West, and there's a shortage of currency receipts. Again, the major source was export of oils, which is under sanctions, which hampers conducting business and mutual payments. Metallurgical industry is also under sanctions, unfortunately. This situation after 2018 made the government of Iran develop economics of resistance to support local production, focusing on import substitution. Currently, there's a temporary ban on import of over 2,000 items. Despite all this, Russian-Iranian trade volume has shown 5% growth last year. With regard to heavy engineering, it's only 47 million US dollars turnover, unfortunately. October 2019, a temporary agreement on creating a free trade zone between Eurasian Economic Union and Iran. Now Iran has undertaken to reduce tariffs for 350 items and 502 items for Eurasian Economic Union country. At the same time, the heavy engineering products are not yet part of that list. But I think after the setting up of this free trade zone, the situation is going to change. Currently, Iran is lacking any modern level technologies. There's an acute need of skilled personnel and state-of-the-art equipment. Iran needs all kinds of technologies.
То короткое время потепления США и странами Запада, к сожалению,
the short period of time that Iran had good relations with the Western countries did not allow Iran to really enjoy the buying of good equipment. Last year, Iran imported heavy engineering products worth $6 billion US. China, Emirates, Turkey, and Germany were key partners for that. Some of the countries are supplying products by circumventing the sanctions. If really necessary to buy some heavy machinery, Iranians study the market on their own. They find exporters, producers, very quickly find the funds for that. use all of their reserves, hard currency and otherwise, and make procurement. These are very rare cases. They are not advertised, and this is done outside any kind of tenders. Considering the current market situation, we see that there are promising areas where interactions could occur in the area of heavy engineering. That includes coal mining industry, equipment for mining and metallurgical industry, heavy machinery, and components for that. But the market of Iran is not easy because of the geopolitical situation and because of the internal domestic policy and the mentality of Iran. Speaking about Russian companies tapping Iranian market, which is a new market to them, they need to be mindful of the fact that all of the products you supply there need to meet domestic standards. So there's an organization of standards of Iran, and they're working with ROS standard of Russia to harmonize our standards bilaterally. And as an alternative to their own standards, Iran can accept US and EU standards, which is not always acceptable to our producers. One of the key conditions for cooperating with Iran is the promise of localizing your production. They insist on that. When you enter the Iranian market, you can either sell your product to an Iranian partner, to an importer, or to an end customer. The Iranians would insist on getting an exclusivity from you, and they would want to get a certificate and a license for their own company. This is a common practice in Iran, but you need to be very careful about this approach, because you need to limit the cycle, the duration of these exclusive rights, because we've had examples in the past where Russian companies would provide exclusive rights after that would not have a time limit, and when the Iranians did not fulfill their obligations, this Russian company could not sign any alternative agreements with other companies. So in this case, these companies had to leave the market of Iran. Another option to go to Iran is to open your own subsidiary or an office in Iran to supply your finished products or feedstock materials for further production in Iran, which would allow you to have all of the certificates put in place and licenses in the name of the Russian company. The founders and the chair of the board could be Russian citizens. The registered company would have all of the rights and benefits of a local company. You can also set up a company in the free economic areas that are being developed quite actively by Iran. They are trying to create all of the necessary conditions to attract Russian and foreign businesses. You have to be very careful when you process your contracts, and you also need to be mindful of the practice of arbitration courts. The arbitration courts will be on the side of local companies. You also need to attend international sectoral exhibitions. You don't have to put up your own booth. You just need to come over there and talk to the local potential Iranian partners, and maybe even have talks right there. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic, and in Iran, they are now experiencing a spike in infections. 9 to 12th of July will be when the first exhibition, Eurasia Expo, will take place in Iran. About 30 Russian companies are expected to participate, and if the participants of this conference are ready to participate or have interest in doing that, we will be able to help you with your participation, but you need to make your decision within the next couple of days so that you could get your visas and make your applications. So we will look forward to hearing from you an expression of interest. Until recently, Iran had an office of REC. It was closed down and it's being reformatted right now. But nevertheless, REC is well known for its support for Russian exporters in terms of insurance and lending. And they also provide subsidies for participating in Congress and fair and exhibition activities. One of the key issues that Russian exporters have is the issue of settlement or payment. Unfortunately, there's only one mere business bank operating in Russia, which is 100% owned by Iran. 100% of capital is owned by Iran or Iranian partners. It is the bank that is involved in settlements in rubles and euros. Its head office is in Moscow, plus there are two subsidiaries in Astrakhan and Kazan. Russian banks also try to establish good relations with Iran, but unfortunately the situation is such that even if you have such relations, corresponding relations with Iranian banks, you may not have an opportunity to process payments. But you could also use third countries' banks for payments. Iranian partners involved in foreign economic activities offer such options themselves, depending on which countries they keep their accounts in. Usually these are banks of Turkey and UAE. Speaking about practical advice, you have to take into account the Iranian mentality. Do not get offended by the fact that Iranians do not immediately respond to your calls or emails. The best strategy is to have face-to-face discussions. It is preferable to require 100% prepayment, because we've had cases where you had to essentially really work to get the money extracted and repaid. You also need to be mindful of Iran's holidays and their New Year, which is in March, religious events, and what happens during the holy month of Ramadan. When women travel to Iran, they need to follow the dress code, which is adopted in Iran. You need to carry a lot of cash to Iran because they would not be able to withdraw money from ATMs. And we have an updated site of our trade mission where we place all of the updated information about activities in Russian and in Farsi. We also have an Instagram account, and we would like to invite our colleagues to join our page to follow us there. On our part, our trade mission is ready to provide comprehensive assistance to Russian exporters when entering the market and finding the right partners. And finding a reliable partner is very important in Iran. We are ready to provide consultations, advice, organize business missions, and find your partners. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Always in contact with you and ready for cooperation. Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrei. We are a little bit beyond schedule, but still a couple of questions. A question from Sergei Sokolov from Saratov. Can the trade mission help with setting up direct contacts with specific companies in Iran? Of course. In principle, we use two approaches. So whenever we are approached by someone who wants to find a potential partner, that's one case. And the second case would be when we would get addresses of companies, we would get in contact with them, would confirm with them that the Russian company wants to cooperate with this company in Iran, and then we try to establish a direct contact between these two entities. Thank you so much for your answer. I hope that Sergei heard it. The trade mission is looking forward to your direct application. The second question is from Andrei Petrov. Are there any restrictions on making payments from Iran to Russia? Is it possible that the intermediary bank in the US and in Europe could reject a payment being wired from Iran to Russia? Thank you very much. That's a very peculiar question, because all of the payments right now are made essentially manually. The Iran's banking system is under sanctions. It's very isolated. The banks of Iran are switched off from SWIFT, the SWIFT system, and therefore payments are either made in euros or in rubles, but through a very limited number of banks. And unfortunately, there's only one channel that is more or less reliable. That is the Russian Mir Business Bank, which was founded by Iranian Bank of Milli, 100% owner of that bank. So that's probably the only one reliable channel. However, as part of the Intergovernmental Commission, there is a banking working group that it has been trying for the last 8 years to develop mechanisms and facilities that would ensure that reliable payments are made. So the tools are available to make payments possible between Russia and Iran. Well, one is definitely better than zero, more than zero. And if there's one, that's already good. I agree. Thank you very much for your intervention. We need to move forward. Time flies. Thank you again. We now are moving to South America. We are flying across the ocean. We are now in Peru. It's the third largest country in South America, known for its mining and non-ferrous metals industry, one of the key industries in Peru, which is quite important in the context of our business mission, which gives us hope for success. An overview of the current situation in the heavy machine industry and the heavy engineering business in the Republic of Peru will be made by Oleg Gorlov. You have the floor. Thank you. Good afternoon, dear participants of the online conference and the online business mission. Hello from Chita, near Baikal. We are here learning the export potential of the local producers organized by the Ministry for Industry and Trade, but my presentation will be about Peru, and I will give an overview of Peruvian economy. It's one of the most dynamically developing nations in Latin America, with the growth rate of 4.5% despite the growth, the pandemic of COVID-19, and its GDP in 2020 was 142 billion rubles. The structure of exports is traditionally commodity-based and agriculture-based. Imports are primarily consumer goods and capital-intensive goods, including industrial equipment. Key 10 partners of Peru account for 70% of all of the trade volume. China is number one, followed by the United States, Canada, and Korea, and Russia is only 26 in this list. Russia-Peru trade volume was $409 million, and in 2019, this was at $548 million. Peru's priority is in making the economy open and in attracting foreign investment to make its economy more competitive. Key producers of engineering products that are imported by Peru worth about $1.5 billion a year. It's China, Mexico, Japan, Korea, and Russia is only in 47th place in this regard. These are the products that are supplied for the mining, gas and oil, metallurgical, and power engineering. The mining industry is one of the key industries of the economy, as I have already said, with the share in GDP of 10%. In the export sector, it's 60%. Peru is one of the leaders in the mining for copper, silver, zinc, tin, gold, and molybdenum. 70,000 people are employed by the industry, and tangentially 150,000 ore enrichment. This is something done by vertically integrated foreign companies. Less than half of the ore is refined, and most of it is exported as concentrate. And the companies are foreign where it comes to special equipment. They sell equipment from Sandvik, Caterpillar, Hitachi, Komatsu. Most of the natural mineral resources are mined in open pits, and therefore you need to use bucket-based equipment, and open pit equipment. Equipment is primarily supplied by foreign companies such as Plus Petrol, which is an Argentine industry that is doing mining for oil and gas at the Commissaire field with the resources of over 10 trillion cubic meters of gas. And in 2020, 50,000 barrels of oil were produced a day. And the state is not really involved in the sector, but in the oil and gas sector, Petroperu is heavily involved, which is involved in transportation and refining of oil and gas products with a share in the economy of 51%. They import annually products which are worth $6 million to the United States. And of course, there could be some prospects in the area of metallurgy. There are two major facilities, Aceros de Arequipa and Siderperu. Both facilities specialize in the production of wires, reinforcement bars used in construction and oil and gas and machining industry. Aceros de Arequipa is using furnaces, and Siderperu uses other types of kilns. There are a number of large metal working companies that make products for the mining industry. That includes poles for mills, mining equipment, pumps, and the like. And I can also give you some data on the imports of key metallurgical equipment. In 2020, Peru imported rolls and ferns for gas filtering, as well as furnaces worth about $12 million. Let's talk about power production. Generating capacity is primarily concentrated in the hydro energy plus thermal industry, 38%. And the share of Peruvian companies in generation is about 15%, and foreign account for about 85%. And the state sector is represented by 5 companies. The largest of them are Electroperu, with the installed capacity of 903 megawatts. Major investments in the electricity production over the recent years have resulted in the surplus of energy produced. The installed capacity in Peru in 2020 was 15.5 gigawatts, and the effective capacity is 14.5 gigawatts. Experts believe that this is the situation that will remain like this for the next 10 years. And as for hydro turbines, on average, they buy $8 million worth of that, and the importation of more than 10 megawatts worth of turbines is $18.5 million over the 10 years. And speaking about the market specificity, I'd like to say that because of the landscape, they are using equipment from foreign companies. They are trying to enter the market. For example, Silovi Machine, a Russian company, is also trying to work through the office in Peru, and good opportunities are available for heavy engineering producers is through participation in sectoral exhibitions. Perumin is one of such exhibitions. In 2020, the Russian company took part in that with a booth that was organized by the Russian Export Center, and that included Fidesis, which is present here. And I would like to point out that the interest in their product was quite high.
I hope that the Russian Export Center will continue This practice of subsidized exhibitions in Peruvian companies should consider their participation. The relevant information on exhibitions in Peru are on the website of the trade associations. It's better to deliver products through local partners, local distributors of equipment. The trade representation, he has positive experience in this regard and a good database of local importers, and we are ready to assist Russian companies interested in the Peru market. KAMAZ is delivering their products through their KAMAZ Latin America partner. Surexpo Import is official distributor for Chelyabinsk tractor plant. Last year, they started delivery of loaders, and Volga Burmash is delivering to Berura bits for drilling through its Chilean representative. In summary, I can say Russian-Peru economic relations have good prospects, including delivery of heavy engineering products. Let me remind you that today we are 57, and we have, of course, some backlog for us to move on. Peru is a good market, and it's a test for competitiveness for Russian high-tech producers. Thank you for your attention. Looking forward to requests from our exporters. Oleg, thank you very much. If you can tell us your main recipe of success for Russian exporters willing to enter the Peruvian market, what is it, based on your experience? Show initiative, desire to export, and meeting all the challenges and issues. There are quite a few issues, and many exporters, through trial and error, through their mistakes, are learning to enter markets. Speaking about heavy engineering, I think overall we are better off compared to overall export capabilities. Our companies know the market, they take part in exhibitions, establish contacts, communicate, meet requirements of importers, potential buyers, and do it in a foreign language, in Spanish. Thank you very much. Is there in the Peruvian market, do you have B2B marketplaces where equipment manufacturers can sell their products that you can recommend? With regard to heavy engineering products, I'm not aware of such marketplaces. There are marketplaces. There's a Russian-Peruvian marketplace. We placed information on some equipment, but life has shown it's not effective. On Facebook, there are associations present, Association of Mining Industry, they're putting their posts, announcements. If you apply to the trade representatives, I will advise we communicate with relevant associations, with committees, and ready to share our contacts and assist in and facilitate in establishing ties. And another question, very briefly, if you can, from Sharafuddinov. What standards and certificates are required in Peru? Is there any similarity to Europe? No certification is required. They go by European US system of certification, and that's an additional advantage. They work with foreign companies. 85% are foreign concession holding companies. Thank you very much. We are moving on. We are behind, increasingly behind the schedule. I apologize to the remaining speakers. We only have a few minutes left. Thank you very much. We are going back to Indonesia, but now we'll have the perspective of the market on the Indonesian part. We have raised this question of searching for partners. Pavel Sorokin, Deputy Trade President, Representative Indonesia, has already hinted that there will be a follow-up to his presentation. What are the prospects for exporting heavy engineering products to Indonesia? What is the perspective and view of professionals living in this market? It's with pleasure that I give the floor to Mr. Yudi Suwanda, Chair of Russian-Indonesian Business Council. Mr. Suwanda, you only have 10 minutes. You have the floor.
Mute.
Yeah. Thank you very much for inviting me for the meeting. As I have already sent my presentation, 4 pages presentation, but actually I like to summarize in more quick presentation for you all. So number one, the performance of Indonesian economy has already been explained by Mr. Pavel Sorokin, that we are going back to 5% GDP growth, hopefully in the second half of this year and next year. Number two, that the COVID now touching a very critical ways, everybody, which the government now put control tightly. And number three, Indonesia as G20 member, rank number 7. Now under the leadership of President Joko Widodo, we are experiencing very interesting time. So this is from the country point of view. From the opportunity point of view, in my third slide, I mentioned in this slide is the industrial sectors, which may be the interest of Russian exporter. With the stars, I put once again the oil and gas industry, petrochemical, rail and wagon industry, shipyard, steel industry, mining, as well as energy is the key for the Indonesia opportunity. And I believe the Russian exports supported by the Russian Export Center can work together with us in Indonesia. Number 4, the Omnibus Law. This is, we call it the government of Indonesia campaign to make the Indonesian investment is friendly. So the key of this is opening all the opportunities for the foreign investor. We are focusing on value-added creation, especially in mining, fisheries, battery, and electric car. Number 3, we are also concentrating in self-sufficiency and reduce import, food, as well as oil and palm oil. We need to have export-driven economy. The government also lead the large infrastructure development, which may be the interest of Russia. So the bottom line, the growth opportunity is upstream sector of the strategic industries, renewable energy generation, participation in oil and gas technology advancement, especially for deep sea drilling, and improve production process through automation for industries. Develop ferrous steel products for different applications, especially for shipbuilding. Those are the area that I believe Indonesian business partners as well as Russian partners can work together with the assistance of Indonesia Russian trade representative of Russian embassy in Jakarta, as well as the Russian Export Center. I believe we can strengthening the cooperation P2P of the two countries. I think that's about all from my presentation. If you have any question, please let me know. Thank you. Spasiba.
Господин Сувонда, спасибо огромное.
Mr. Suvonda, thank you very much. There is a question. Could you name 2 or 3 key projects in Indonesia that are in the pipeline or underway in the metallurgical sector or mining sector that could be of interest to Russian exporters, where the Russian exporters could participate in various ways? Mining and metallurgical. Maybe new plants, maybe extension of existing or upgrade.
Okay. Once again, we keep inviting Russian, especially for the mining, in this case in bauxite, alumina, and aluminum smelters. Yeah, this is big investment, and we need a technology not only from other countries but also from Russia. Number 2, hydropower, the giant hydropower in North Kalimantan. This is about totally 6,000 to 7,000 megawatt. 2,000 megawatt is already dedicated to Chinese. Still have some left, and that's open for Rushydro and other companies. Number 3, Indonesia will be expected to be the global lithium battery provider because of the nickel process. And this will create quite a big number of infrastructure like electric car, battery station, as well as processing of nickel. So this is good opportunity. And the last one in relation with the mining is rare earths. Rare earth, we have plenty of rare earth, is controlled by government. And once again, to make a value-added product of rare earth, the government welcome the Russian technology as well as business people. So, is that answer your question? Hopefully, yes. Thank you.
Господин Сувонда, спасибо.
Mr. Suvonda, thank you very much for very substantive, concrete and interesting presentation. I think that the exporters that would like or already desire to operate in Indonesia can contact you.
Yes,
более предметно.
And I can build on your presentation and ask further questions. We thank you. And we are moving on.
Thank you. Spasiba.
Спасибо. Thank you very
Thanks
much.
a lot. we are moving on and continue to get acquainted with the Indonesian market. And I give the floor to Dr. Atam, Chairman of the Committee of Russia's CIS of the Chamber of Trade and Commerce of the Republic of Indonesia. Opportunities for heavy engineering in Indonesia. Mr. Atam, you have the
Thank you,
floor.
Mr. Thank you, Mr. Zukovsky. Well, first of all, thank you, and it's you're giving me a difficult task, a challenging task, because I have to talk after the two colleagues of mine, my two senior colleagues, Mr. Pavel and Mr. Didi. Well, but I'll try to also give you a view of what the opportunities are in Indonesia. Let me just provide you with my presentation. We've spoken, I think, about, this is the agenda, the Indonesian macroeconomics. Then we have opportunities, and this is the heart of the presentation. What are the key factors and doing business in Indonesia? So we've gone through this. If you have 270 million, we have a GDP of $1.06 trillion, which is comparable. Russia has about $1.47 trillion of GDP in its economy. There you have a graph of where Indonesia is in terms of growth. We mentioned 5%, the previous speakers mentioned 5%. Now we're still in negative, but we hope to come back. This is the medium to long-term objective. And then I gave you a couple of numbers in terms of trade statistics. Here, I just wanted to point out that the trade between Indonesia and Russia is not very big. It's about $2 billion, $2.5 billion was in 2018, but it's now about $2 billion. Now, let's now go to the heart of the presentation. The heart of the presentation is, what are the opportunities for heavy engineering projects in Indonesia? Let's look at what the projects are. And you asked a good question to Pak Didi about projects. There are basically three types of projects. One is the government initiative projects. Second is the private initiative. And the third one is the non-major projects. So that is the smaller type of projects. With regards to government initiative, we have what is called a Project Strategis Nasional, National Strategic Project, which is initiated by the government. There are 233 projects valued at about $135 billion that are there. And here I can list out to you, there are about more than 20 fields in it, going from toll roads, national roads, infrastructure projects, strategic airports, seaport developments. And I will give you a link where you can review each and every project of them, each and every project of the 233 projects. And here I can tell you that 42% is going to be privately funded. So that's the first part of the government initiative. The second part of the government initiative is called PRONAS, which is National Priority Projects. And these are selected projects within the National 5-Year Development Plans, funded by the government. And there are 7 fields of interest. But I think what would be interesting for Russian companies would be infrastructure-related companies. So in 2021, there are already a couple of projects that are being performed. And I think now because of the COVID pandemic, it's slowing a little bit down. But most importantly, what I'd also like to share with you here is the existence of the KPPIP, which is the Committee for Acceleration of Priority Infrastructure Delivery. They manage the list of projects that are within the 2 categories that I mentioned before, the PSN and the PRONAS. Now, if you look and you access this website, kpp.go.id, you can find project details of each of the 233 projects. It gives you the value of each project, what it wants to do, It gives you also the timeline. It gives you the progress. If, for instance, a project is already in progress, it tells you how many percentage it is already in. So this gives you an overview of what the government initiative projects are doing. And in this mode of economic mode of COVID environment, the government sector is the leading sector that drives the economy. I think that is all over the world, that the government is leading the private sector at this point. So same in Indonesia. And if you want to see what the government in Indonesia is doing in terms of projects which could be opportunities for Russian companies, I invite you to access that site, kpp.go.id. Now, there are also private initiatives, of course, and these are along the lines of what Didi has been mentioning before in the sectors that I will talk about a little bit later. And to have a good view of what the private sector is doing and the government sector actually as well, what I would suggest to you, or what I would advise to you, is that you utilize a private or commercial listing. There are companies around here in Asia which gives you a list of projects that are upcoming, that are going to be done, and they give you details such as the value of each of the projects, and these range from $1 million until hundreds of $1 millions for bigger projects. So you have a complete listing of government as well as private projects. And here I listed for you one of the companies, and I'm not endorsing this company in particular. It's called BCI Asia, and they have a marvelous listing of projects that you can access, so you can see and you can feel, oh, this may be a project that you would be interested in. So that is the gist of it. If you want to analyze this in a systematic manner and you want to see data, if you want to do government projects, kpp.go.id. If you do private projects, go to a commercial listing. Now, if we look at sectors, there's several that I want to mention. Energy, mentioned by Pak Didi Suwondo as well. Natural resource processing, which are the smelters, the examples being bauxite, alumina, nickel, rare earth. Infrastructure, lots of projects going on in infrastructure. Tourism infrastructure, which is a totally different thing, and these are infrastructure projects that are dedicated for the development of tourism, whether it be ports, whether it be ports, transportation, airports. These are the tourism infrastructures. And also one of the sectors that the Indonesian government is now pushing is pharmaceuticals. The development of pharmaceuticals is now being highlighted because Indonesia every year imports about 418 trillion rupiah, which is close to about $28 billion in terms of medicine. Unfortunately, we import most of our medicine. So I think there's also a good opportunity if you're a maker of equipment in the pharmaceutical industry. Indonesia may be one place to be at. Now, here I'm just highlighting energy. And energy there, here I'm sharing with you the 12 energy prioritized strategy. If you look at it from 1 to 12, you can see, first of all, increase of crude oil, capacity of oil refineries. There are a couple of oil refineries that are being built. Some are expansions, some are also new build greenfield refineries, such as the one as in Tuban, which I think Rosneft is participating with our state-owned company Pertamina. Biofuel, gas fuel, electric vehicles. This is also a field that is being prioritized. LPG improvement, gas networks, electric stoves, DME, which is a substitute for LPG. And you can read the list. I'll be sharing the presentation with the organizers. Now, what are the key factors to participate in Indonesia? And I think I've listened to the presentation from the beginning, and I think financing is pretty important. I mean, if you bring your own financing, that would be to the project, that would be very helpful as a competitive advantage. Technology, of course, important. Local presence is also important because for most of the tenders, you need to have a local presence, which I think was also mentioned by the trade representative, Mr. Sorokin. So these are some of the things that I think are the most important things as key factors if you want to do in Indonesia. I think as in other countries, the presenters in India or in Peru, I think they're in Iran, there are specific domestic regulations. We also have our domestic regulations, but they're pretty much similar in nature. And I think you can contact your trade representative office to help you with that, with those issues. So as a closing, I think doing business in Indonesia, what are your resources? You have the Indonesian embassy in Moscow that you can contact. You have the Russian embassy in Jakarta, and of course the trade representative office who's represented in this seminar. And also you have us, Kadin Indonesia, the Chamber of Commerce of Indonesia. We have a Russia committee, and we have a business service desk. So with that, I end my presentation. This is my email and my phone number. And if there are any questions, I'm open. Thank you very much.
Господин Ратам, спасибо.
Mr. Pratham, thank you so much for your very detailed and very deep analysis and for your presentation. It was indeed very interesting. I'm sure that the market of Indonesia has been presented to us from different angles and different viewpoints. Please tell us, based on your huge experience, how would you answer these two questions? Number one, what are the key 2 or 3 steps that one should make? I mean, a Russian exporter should make if they come to the market of Indonesia. What would you recommend they do? What are the practical steps they need to undertake, the right practical steps that you would take in the shoes of a Russian exporter?
Sure.
Step number 1, step number 2, step number 3, if possible. Thank you.
Okay, good. Sure. Thank you very much for the question. I think, first of all, again, because going into a market requires resources. I mean, time and funds, of course. So I think before you go to Indonesia, as before you go to any country, you should research, and that is why I gave you the references to government project as well as private projects, so you can see whether the market is suitable for you. And by doing that, you can see. I mean, if you're, for instance, a manufacturer or equipment builder for oil and gas, then you can see, oh, these are the oil and gas projects. These are interesting or not interesting. Or let's say refinery, these are interesting or not interesting. So do your research. Once then you decide to come to Indonesia, I think there are a couple of things. First of all, I think you need to come to Indonesia to see on the ground. I would suggest that you contact your trade representative office, or you could also contact us in Kadin to meet you. And I think getting a partner here is also very important. But you need to be here on the ground to feel what the project looks like. I mean, do your research, make the presentation, make the appointments far ahead, So when you come to Indonesia, you don't waste your time. You don't waste your resources. I think that is very important. Communication is obviously important as in many countries. And then you go to each, once you establish contact with your trade representative office or with ourselves, then you go into, or with, if you have a partner, then you go into analyzing each of the projects that you want to participate in. And I think that would be a pragmatic step, a focused step, rather than just going into the market and looking around. My advice, again, do your research.
Доктор Ратам, спасибо огромное.
Dr. Ratam, thank you so much for your presentation, for your reference to the listing of commercial and government projects. This is very useful. There are very specific questions for you that are associated with contacting a specific corporation, but I'm sure that all of the presenters have given their contact details. They've made them available. We've had the trade missions contacts made available. Andrei Petrov, who asked this question, can contact those offices, and you will very quickly find your answers. Mr. Ratam, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Intervention. That was very valuable. Thank you very much. Dear listeners, dear participants of the conference, we move on to the next part of our program. Successful use cases, successful examples of work. We have several cases from our exporters who would want to share their experience and their secrets, if you will, their tips. And that's always very useful, very interesting, and that saves resources and time. That's something that's always helpful to create the synergy that you need. That's what many of the speakers alluded to today. The experience in exporting equipment from OZTM Cartex for the mining industry from India and for India and for Mongolia. It is my great pleasure to give the floor to Jan Center, General Director of the managing company of OZTM Cartex. Jan, you have the floor, but please stick to the 10-minute timeline. Hello, dear colleagues. I won't go beyond this. Our company produces equipment for the mining and metallurgical industry. This is all I heard about the industry of Peru, and there were a lot of contacts we've tried to establish with Iran. They were not very successful. We produce open pits, excavators, hoist, lifting towers, all types of crushing equipment, which are at the top level, milling equipment, size reducing equipment, cranes for the metallurgical industry. On top of that, we have two facilities or two plants. One of them is the casting facility, and there are two machine building plants, Uralmashzavod and Cartex. And Cartex of the two has become one of the best plant producing reducers, gear reducing equipment. The equipment that we build is the equipment that we use to process cogs, and there's nothing of that kind, and this is unparalleled in Russia. On the first part of my presentation, can you please put on my presentation, the very first page of it? I wonder if you can do this. If not, then I will proceed. Our share of the market based on our import supplies, 58% is for open pit electrical excavators, for hoist towers that we only started producing 3 years ago. Now our market share on the market is 50%. Our key buyers are Nornickel, GMK, Evraz, and others. Jan, I'm sorry. Your presentation has been displayed. Yes, I can see that. Thank you very much. Plus, there are crushing lines. We've made really a breakthrough last year. And in general, for the contracts that we signed in 2020, our share was 90%, but as for the contracts that we've signed over the last 3 years, that share was at a level of about 30%. We have been making attempts to create, together with the Ministry for Industry and Trade, the so-called hydraulic excavators. We built one. We are now launching the second one. So we are moving forward in big strides, developing the range of equipment for the mining and metallurgical industry. Now, let's talk about the specific experience in what we've done. First of all, we have a market that we work on, which is one of the largest in the world, India. We have very good relations with our Indian partners. We've been able to build very good relations with them. And now we do understand how it all works there. India is #2 country in the world in terms of coal production. And it's the country that has the largest company with a share of 80% in the coal production, which is called India Limited. And they produce more than the whole Russia produces. And they can produce up to 1 billion tons of coal a year by 2025. Here are some of the examples of the huge contracts that we've signed. The contract for $322 million was signed with the support of the Ministry for Industry and Trade. Mr. Mantrev and Mr. Ivanov were involved. And that is a contract for 5 draglines for Coal India Limited, or CIL. We've also been announced as the winner of the tender. And on Tuesday, I'm going to be there for that. It's the delivery of 20 cubic meter open pit excavators. And in both cases, in the first and the second, our key competitors were plants of Caterpillar and Komatsu, the facilities that are physically located in the United States. However, the quality of our products and the price were better than theirs. That's what we could offer. Let's move on. Uzbekistan. Traditionally, Russia is well presented in Uzbekistan. This slide shows how we have been supplying our open pit excavators to Almaliksky Mining and Metallurgical Combine and Novai Mining and Metallurgical Combine. Our equipment works at these facilities since 1961. Over the last 3 years, we have really had this cooperation evolving. We have seen major upgrades to production equipment in our facility, and we've approved essentially strategy development programs in all areas. We have been able to sign last year the largest EPC contract for supplying a set of copper enriching facility at Almalik. The cost of the contract is $2 billion. As for others, we work together with REC and the VEB to move on. We are now discussing the issue of funding, and would like to thank the VEB and XR for being involved in this and for their support. Without their support, that contract would not have been possible. Slide number 7 that I'm showing now is essentially a description of the equipment that we are going to be supplying to the Almalik Mining and Chemical Combine. The cost of Russian equipment is about $600 million. It's not just from ZTM Kartex, but also from our suppliers. Conex, Tazmash, and Rees are among the suppliers that we work with. The next area, which is not kind of well developed right now, but it is in Mongolia. Well, they have a lot of mining and metallurgical facilities there in Mongolia, but at the same time, Mongolia is moving away from Russia towards China. It's gravitating towards China. We've made a lot of attempts to increase our presence there, but our supplies there to Mongolia are very meager compared to what we supply to India and Uzbekistan.
Что Уральского турбинного завода значит, есть продвижение продукции, значит, в Монголии. Ну, вот, на мой взгляд, явно недоработка всех нас.
In my view, we have not done enough, including myself, our company, trade representations. Kazakhstan very actively developed relations. I do not cite it in my presentation. Russia and China are the, and there's a shift in favor of Chinese deliveries. This is what we have delivered, lifting and transportation, mining equipment, excavators, that is up to world standards, within the time limit, I hope. Thank you very much. Jan, with your permission, I have a question. Tell us, you have huge experience. Congratulations on this huge projects, contracts. A vivid example of showing that Russian equipment is competitive. A vivid example of how a Russian export center can work and deliver. The numbers speak for themselves. Look at this. India, you made it. Mongolia, no, yet. My question to you is this. What is most important in entering a market? You have this huge size equipment, very expensive, costly. You have long been in this global competitive field, and same competitors operate in India. In India, you made it, but not in Mongolia. What is the recipe? What's the reason? In my view, in India, there is this huge support on the part of the trade representation of the Russian Federation. We come there, India, Uzbekistan. We come with our financing. We are 100% subsidiary of Gazprom. We are ready to provide favorable conditions. In my view, Mongolia is drifting away. We have some office in Mongolia, and we see that. So you believe it's things which are more political in nature? Yes, yes, it would seem so. We, all of us, we have not done enough. The Mongolian market, of course, is smaller than the Indian market, but it's similar. Look at the mineral deposits and look who is present there, starting from Canadian to Chinese companies. Thank you, very interesting. One other question. Are you working in Iran? If not, why? I personally have been there several times. We hold the Russian-Iranian Forum there, and then move around all the enterprise, Iranian Mining, Cooper Mining Company, and others. We did not succeed. It is with interest that I heard Andrei's presentation about Iran. I think we can renew our efforts, and we'll contact him and other companies. 2 years ago, we stopped actually developing this content. There's a huge need for the products. We see that in that market, but I think the sanctions which are there, they are against us. They are against Iranian companies purchasing from China or Russia, although they do purchase from China. On the desk of the Minister of Ferrous Non-Ferrous Metallurgy, there's Kampatsu, Caterpillar, all the Western brands. When I asked why, We had a reception. They're all delivering. Sanctions are against you, he said. The Mir Business Bank is something we need to go through. We tried various schemes. There's this trade house, trade house Caspian, for which joint deliveries are made via Azerbaijan. We did not make it. We did not succeed. Although the need for Russian equipment is huge there. Jan, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. And unfortunately, we have to move on. I understand you could tell us a whole day. No. If you could find time. I'm sure you have something to share. Huge experience, huge results. Every success to you from all our hearts. And we are sure that Russian products will be visible in many countries of the world thanks to you. Thank you very much for your participation and very substantive presentation. Thank you and goodbye. We are moving on, and the next case is on Cuba. Cuba has traditionally been our partner. And there are all kinds of subtle nuances there, I'm sure. The experience of implementation of a project of upgrading a metallurgical plant, Atiliano de Acero. This will be shared by Vadim Velichko, Director General of Industrial Engineering Company. Vadim, you have the floor up to 10 minutes, please. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this case as part of this conference. A few words about us. Industrial Engineering is an engineering entity set up in 2007, specializing in heavy engineering, metallurgy, casting, road projects, cement. It's complete service, designing, manufacturing, assembly, erection, training, and post-guarantee service. As to the Cuban case, you have rightly said it's a friendly country, but starting 2013, we've been involved in this process of upgrading of the Atiliano de Acero as part of the Intercontinental Agreement in 2017. Since 2013, we've been involved in this case. The project is quite challenging. There are multiple facets. Number one, technical feasibility was called the repair and upgrade of the existing project. When we got deeper into the plant, it was built 40 years ago. To repair in current production conditions is impossible. The technologies are far ahead, the equipment is obsolete, and work and communicate with the customer, convince him there should be up-to-date equipment provided. Then terms of reference provided. Now implementation phase with additional challenges and difficulties. Specifically, it was necessary to have a comprehensive audit, financial and technical. This is done as part, it's a loan, it's funding money from the government. And the share of Russian producers should be at least 90%, 90. It was necessary to have all the equipment delivered from Russia. This was an ambitious task. We looked at Russian industry, where it was. In 2015, 2016, we would deliver 200 people at a time from Russia to Cuba, from manufacturing companies. They visited, looked at this, and began to implement this task. Today, Over 60 Russian companies are involved. We are, as general contractor, restored many cooperation value chains. Many Russian producers, crane, power, they are deliver equipment and they are not ready to continue and to get integrated. This is the function of integration that we assumed. So first, we agreed on the terms of reference with the customer. We needed to assess the reality, to understand the scale of the task and challenge for the future. For Cuba, it's a sector forming. It produces most export revenues because they produce construction, reinforcement, and fixtures. We agreed on the technology, changed the philosophy, the approach. Currently, on our part, we have done a complete retrofit and refurbishment from from logistics, railways, locomotives, then further on in the value chain, input material preparation, manufacturing technologies, casting, the rolling mill, the power, water preparation, water treatment, comprehensive training program. And they were trained at the Russian similar manufacturing steel plant. Over 120 Cuban personnel were trained and began working immediately. It's important to have personnel in place. It's an old plant, over 40 years. There's no continuity and succession between generations. There was no new training before. But they got to the Russian industry. For Russia, this was also a serious challenge because for many companies, they had to restore lost competencies. For instance, for the Moscow company, ZTM, heavy engineering plant, the rolling mill had not delivered for export for 30 years. It took them 7 years to design, manufacture, and deliver this. Now this equipment is being delivered to this Cuban plant and will be launched soon. It's a two-stage project. The first stage ends next year. Next stage is 22 to 25. For Cuba, it's about exports. It's, of course, the domestic market because these new products will meet up-to-date standards, will be thermal hardened, can use for high-rise buildings, for hotels, because they would only export reinforcements and fixtures. But now this will be domestic production, a saturation of the local market in construction, starting social infrastructure, hotel, business industry, and export potential. Export potential will bring currency, which has been under sanctions for 60 years. It's a favorable region for them to deliver for exports these products. Then, another thing we've seen, a tropical execution. Sounds simple, but we were not ready in terms of certification and manufacturing and delivery and operation. It's a small one-off batch. It's a one-off contract. And for many producers, this was a serious challenge. Then we have our own standard of 60 hertz power, and we had to resolve that as well successfully by our producers. We are the general contractor, industrial engineering. It's bringing together over 60 companies, Russian companies. Now it's the final phase of the first stage of the project. As has been said by previous speakers, we use the services of the Ministry of Trade and Industry, the Russian Export Center. Financial products mentioned are working. We are using them. We're using bank guarantees, free export financing with reduced interest rate. 18 to 12 months production cycle. Without this lending opportunities, it's impossible. We are actively using Russian Export Center is assisting us. Opening letters of credit, documentation, subsidies in the form of subsidizing transportation, shipping. Our colleague has shown new cases which we'll be using in the future. This Cuban project has shown that the Russian industry is ready, the Russian companies are ready, all kinds of measures of support are there. Don't hesitate to enter export markets. It's hard to compete with the Chinese, cheap resources, of course. And we have worked preliminarily on Krakatau for over 1 year. But we are being used a tool for negotiations with China. They show the Chinese Russia is ready to come, ready to bring in high-level government-supported measures, and China is then reducing their costs, their prices, the terms and conditions, and then we lose. We need overseas projects. Only in this way Russian industry can develop. This way, Russia, all these support instruments will work, and trend representations will actively be involved to assist. We are ready as a company, as a country, we believe, and all kinds of circumstances conditions are in place, should be used, be active. If you have questions, ready. Hopefully I was within the time limit. Thank you very much. Very interesting indeed. Please tell us, speaking about your case, Cuban case, could you tell us what was the major challenge and issue in that case, in that deal? In what area and how did you go about it? The major issue was the project started 2013. And honestly, the state of the industry 8 years ago and now is different, two different things. Russian flagship companies from the Soviet Union, they were starting, they never reached the middle of the project. They were in very difficult conditions. They were offering and proposing price and technological conditions that were morally obsolete. We had to audit half of the country. Now our geography is from Kaliningrad to the Urals, participating companies. And we have seen so many companies. There's a need for equipment. And they need, when there is a need and demand for their equipment, they start to upgrade their product. The major issue 5 to 7 years ago for the Cuban case was how to deliver equipment that the country had not produced for several decades. Ambitious tasks were set because Russia does have companies that are able to deliver, that believed in their capacity and ability. The first steps were based on faith. I will interrupt you now. I understood your question. I think the listeners too. Let me ask you in a different way. What you are saying is on the Russian side. On the Cuban side, were there challenges and issues on their part? There are always problems with the customer, not understanding of what they need, what the amount, what equipment, and down to implementation. Not all customers are ready for comprehensive upgrade. Any special Cuban features, financing? Yeah, you need to have local presence, like everywhere. Local permanent presence. People should be there speaking local language. Permanent oversight of all stages of manufacturing and delivery. And Cubans know that, like with the Soviet Union, we will bring everything, including bread and everything. And like the big brother. You will have to assume a double task. Today, construction and assembly is the Cuban part. It's only thanks to our supervisor work, because there are 70 people who are on everyday basis monitoring all the operations, quality of construction, the number of personnel. It's only thanks to this we can implement such projects.
Было за плечами у него некие модернизации, он понимает специфику и понимает, как нужно работать, как надо интегрироваться в эти проекты. Вот Куба, ну,
So
стоит на пути.
Cuba is on the path of getting things better. They are ready because the investments are flowing, but they're used to having to deal with a comprehensive solution, including construction, supplies, startup, and training. So they want to have EPCM contracts in place. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Velichko. Again, we've gone beyond schedule. We have two more speakers. We keep moving. Thank you. We are going back to Indonesia, another successful case of working in Indonesia. And hopefully after this conference, all of our exporters of Russia should go to Indonesia, especially those working in the heavy machinery, heavy engineering area. How to enter the Indonesian market from company registration to staff recruitment by Sergey Galstyan, President Director of KAMAZ Trucks Indonesia office. Sergey, please stick to the 10-minute timeline. Hello, dear colleagues. Hello to all of you. Hello to colleagues from Indonesia. I'll say a few words in Indonesian now. And I would like to emphasize that all of the tools that REC offers are quite effective, and they've played an important role in helping us set up our company. That includes support for certification, reimbursement of transportation costs, and the support provided to us by the trade mission, and I would like to thank them for that. Let me mention a couple of nuances that are associated with the registration of the company in Indonesia and how one should operate in Indonesia. And then if you have any further questions, I would be prepared to take them. First of all, as far as our setting up of the company is concerned, all of the exporters should be prepared to register a legal person there, not just an office, not a representation office, because the functionality of an office does not involve commercial activities. You're not authorized to do that. And there's a kind of skeptical attitude towards offices. So you have to have a legal presence there, a legal entity, company. And the law requires that you have to have two shareholders in the company. You cannot open a legal person in Indonesia if you just have one founder. That's something you may encounter if you've decided to set up an office there. Just keep that in mind. Secondly, you need to be mindful of the following. Indonesia has not yet joined the Hague Convention on the apostille, and apostilling your documents may be difficult, and so Indonesia is not open to all sectors of the industry and economy. And there's a document that's called the negative list of investment, which includes some activities that restrict international participation of foreign companies. There's a list of types of economic activities where foreign capital can participate successfully or at all. So these are the key things that you need to be mindful of when you're creating a company. There are other main activities that you need to be mindful of. For example, the name of the company should contain at least 3 words. And as for your operating activities, for your operations is susceptible to a number of stumbling blocks. So the biggest of them is something that deals with financial transactions. It is a problem to get funding from Russia. Opening accounts can be quite cumbersome too. All banks of Singapore that are present in Indonesia refuse to open our company and settlement account. That sounds strange. Even the Bank of China, strangely enough, that is registered in Russia and operates in Russia, refused to open an account for us just because we are a Rostec associated company. That's a problem. To our own luck, we have been able to successfully open an account in Indonesia, but that is something that took us several weeks to accomplish. As for operations in Indonesia, I would like to piggyback on what Pavel said. Funding is important. There are several funding instruments that are available that can be used for exporting products from Russia. However, these are the tools that are more geared towards funding for the main means of production, fixed assets. And getting this all funded all the way through the end user, it may not be very economically viable. And our Chinese competitors are very tight in that regard. They are applying a lot of pressure on us in terms of the cost of our pressure. That applies to what we do when we supply automotive equipment to Indonesia. So price and funding are two important factors. These two parameters is where we are behind our Chinese competitors. In terms of funding, we are behind our competitors from Europe, but there's also an upside. The quality and price are better than that of our Chinese competitors and the European competitors, and that gives us some strength to keep afloat, to go forward, plow ahead. And Pavel Sorokin mentioned that you need to find very strong partners. And our company is a subsidiary company of KAMAZ PJC and an important importer. We had the Vibur Holding subsidiary. They are the distributor. Also have another distributor which will be supplying for the government sector. Artegra is the name of the company. It's a well-known company in Indonesia. The first distributor supplies to the mining industry, our key supplier. There's a state oil company and power generation company. We are quite successful in that regard. These are the key things you need to be mindful of. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll try to address them. Thank you very much, Sergey Gagikovich. Thank you, Mr. Galstyan. It was a very interesting presentation. Please tell us, in how many countries does KAMAZ sell its products? KAMAZ sells to a lot of countries. Nobody has counted the number of countries. We just count the number of trucks that we sell, but I think it's more than 30 countries. That's the extent of our coverage. And the market is global, and we are competing globally. And KAMAZ competitors in Indonesia and in, let's say, Mongolia, that has been spoken about already, or Kazakhstan, they are the same, right? These 30 countries or so that you mentioned, let's say you're selling actively to those countries, but probably selling to other countries, but less actively. And if that is so, how is that possible that this is happening this way? Why is this? Is this the company's policy, or is this because you don't have enough resources for everything and you need to start somewhere? And KAMAZ is going to continue its expansion because you have all of the prerequisites for success from the marketing standpoint. We have the price of the product, we have the quality of the product, we also have funding support. We have the services, we have the post-sale maintenance and support. I think that's it. And if you win by all of those qualities, it should be sold everywhere. And if you do not win in all those parameters, you should not be sold anywhere. But that's in theory, but in practice, things can be quite different. What is your response to this? Thank you for your question, an interesting question. But if you can compare this with chess, for example, I mean, you can compare this with a grandmaster and a master. And if you're a grandmaster, then you're expected to win everywhere. That's not how it is possible. But KAMAZ, speaking about KAMAZ, is using two approaches, extensive and intensive. Intensive is when we are present in a company and we are expanding our sales in a given country. Extensively, we try to enter new markets. And one of such markets is Indonesia. That was the market of that kind at some point. I can tell you that the brands of the competitors have similar value, but the products, the origin is different. In Indonesia, my competitors are Italian company Iveco, which is made in China, Scania, which is built in Brazil. And so there are two brands that are made in Europe. That's Volvo and KAMAZ, it happens so. The market situation is changing depending on the market. As for Mercedes trucks, there's one model in Indonesia is cheaper than our KAMAZ because it is produced in India. And KAMAZ is made in Europe, in Russia. And that means that your game tactics change depending on the situation in a particular country. And of course, different countries have different requirements for the machinery, for equipment, for trucks and cars. In some cases, our equipment may be cheaper. In others, it can be more expensive. The KAMAZ trucks that are sold to Indonesia have the steering wheel on the wrong side. And that means that we have to make certain changes to how we produce trucks for that country. Thank you very much. It's interesting to discuss that. It's interesting to discuss how one can marketing globally. We don't have time for that, unfortunately, but thank you very much for your intervention. And we are now moving on to the concluding presentation of our today's conference. The final case and the final country that we're going to be talking about today, which is Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is a traditional partner of Russia. It's a huge country with a big market. And I would like to give the floor to Olga Senyukova. She is the oil product sales manager at EPC LLC. She will be talking about independent entry into the international markets. Using the example of Kazakhstan, you have the final presentation, Olga. And this is both good and bad. They say that if the concert at the Kremlin were crowned by Alla Pugacheva, the local pop singer and pop star, in the White House, it was Tina Turner. So you can choose whether you want to be Alla Pugacheva or Tina Turner. If you can make it quicker, I would appreciate that. So the floor is yours. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. It's my pleasure to be associated with both Alla Pugacheva and Tina Turner. Our company is a family company, a family-owned company. And I will tell you about more about our company. Our company was established in the small city of Bugulma in the Republic of Tatarstan, Russia. And we started exporting not too long ago. And we were very successful when we started dealing with the pandemic and its effects, and we had to change our tools that we use. We started with business support centers such as Russian Export Center and regional Ministry for Industry and Trade support centers, and we took part in Kyoji and Aterao oil and gas exhibitions. We showcased our products, and that's when the pandemic came and we had to change our approach to work, and we started moving into the digital world. Although we still are a producer of very tangible equipment, spare parts and equipment like that. Moving into the digital was difficult, but we tried to do this. This is how we presented our products together with the Russian Export Center at the Kyoji exhibition. And REC was present there, always supports us. And when we got back and started negotiations, we realized that we miss direct negotiation with our clients. And we started developing our marketing and sales campaigns. Well, we had some difficulties because we are dealing with a different region, and we had to think through what are going to be our key audiences in those regions that we want to target. So we started with social media. Certainly we answered all of the questions that we got, all of the queries. We always congratulated our Kazakhstani colleagues on their national holidays through email. We used the Google and Yandex test search engines to test how it works through them. We tried that both in Russian and in English. And English is present in Kazakhstan, but Russian is more prevalent, and therefore all of our advertising is done in Russian. And in the previous slides, I'm showing the rise in success of our advertising campaigns, and it rose in 2020 and 2021. And thanks to this work in the digital world, we started getting queries and requests, and we started talking to our prospective clients using online communication, and that brought us a contract at the end of 2020. We cooperated with our colleagues, and we could come to Kazakhstan when all of the borders were closed down. We asked to all of the support centers and to the Ministry for Industry and Trade to get us a permit to go there. And our colleagues were able to meet with our customer, and at the end of the year, we had our contract signed. And at the beginning of 2021, we made our first delivery to the customer. In conclusion, I would like to simply say that our real values that we use to implement our campaigns include environmental protection, family values, cultural values, and lean production.
We continue to take part in business events and meetings, business missions organized by the Russian Export Center. We are researching and studying international markets, European Union, the Persian Gulf, African countries, electronic platforms. We are on Euro pages. We are and Alibaba.com. I would like to thank you to share information about our case. It's not a big case. We're a small business facing certain challenges, but we have the great support of the Ministry of Trade and Industry, the Russian Export Center, the export cluster here in Tatarstan. And thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. Great many thanks to you, Olga. You were virtually Nina Turner, Alla Pugacheva. Many exporters believe that Kazakhstan's market virtually no different from the Russian market. Will you agree with that statement? If not, what's the difference? Partially, yes. It's simple because we understand each other. We speak the same language. But there is a complexity in difficulty. 90% should be the regional component. The Kazakh investment is the key thing. To enter the oil and gas sector, that presents some difficulty. That's a feature of Kazakhstan's market. Olga, great many thanks again. Thank you for the answer to the question and thank you for your presentation. Practical cases are always interesting. We wish you further success in Kazakhstan, in all the other countries you will decide to enter. Dear attendees, dear listeners, we are concluding this conference. We have exhausted our agenda. I can see no new questions coming in. We are 30 minutes behind the schedule, sorry, but it was interesting. Hopefully you will forgive us. Allow me, as the moderator of this conference, in conclusion, to thank the organizer of this conference, of the business mission, the Russian Export Center. The center is moving forward. The real assistance that the exporters we're talking about is valuable and useful. Dear exporters, make use of the measures of support Anton was telling us about. Work jointly with the Russian Export Center. It's an earnest of your success. Certainly, I'd like to thank the Ministry of Trade and Industry, trade representations in Indonesia, Iran, India, and Peru, who share a lot of useful information about the markets of those countries. Again, trade representatives and representations are working for you. It's a valuable kind of service. And expensive kind of service that Russia can afford to promote your products and the services worldwide. Make sure you use the services of trade representatives, which is a powerful tool for promoting your products. My special thanks to our overseas partners who have spoken at this conference. It was a valuable piece of information. Having the view from the inside is also important. I, of course, thank all the attendees for the patience, and I hope that we managed to deliver some useful information. Every success to the business mission participants that will last for a whole month. Fruitful negotiations and solid contracts. Heavy engineering is a serious business. We have serious successes. Hopefully, we can build on that. All the best to all of you, and thank you for your attention.